All right, we're going back to my bodybuilding roots. Today we got IFBB Pro, Fakhri Mubarak, and also Guru, coach to the champions. What's happening, Fakhri?
Thank you. Good, man. Thank you for having me on. Congratulations on your show with Muscular Development. That's very awesome.
Yeah, well, you and I are Muscular Development family now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been with them since 2005, pretty much on and off. So welcome to family.
Thank you very much, dude. You know, quickly what happened is I put together a panel show like Fouad does and like Dennis James does and Desktop and whatnot. And when I found out that Nick Walker separated from Fouad, I messaged, I don't know if you know these guys. Some of them are young pros. Nathan Spear.
Yeah.
Carlos Thomas Jr.
Yeah, he's a beast.
And he's a monster. And Jason Arns, of course. And I told all three of them, get in contact with him and see if he'll come on. like I bombarded him with every pro I knew. Anyway, so long story short, he comes on. It turns out I'm the first podcast that he was on after he left Fouad.
After Fouad, yeah.
And then Ron Harris noticed. And that's when he messaged me on Instagram. But I interviewed Ron Harris like a few months back.
Okay.
But he knew who I was. And he messaged me. He's like, hey, how about you do that show on Muscular Development? I'm like, fuck yeah. So we did.
Ron's a good guy, man. Ron's a real good guy.
He really is. And Nick couldn't do it, but I got Charles Griffin to come on with us. That was our first episode. So it was me, Arns, Dom Trivellini, Nate Spear, and Charles Griffin. That was the first.
Charles is beast, bro.
Dude, it's unbelievable. Like he's got muscle. Like, I don't know, how can I say this? He's got a combination of muscle of black guy and white guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's
got that graininess of he's got the crazy roundness, and he's got that graininess that you only see on like light skinned dudes. It's unbelievable. Anyway, let's get into you, man. This is about you today. So this is the first time you're on my channel. So let's start from the beginning. So before we got started, we were talking. You're a New York guy. You grew up in Brooklyn, and then you had moved to Queens. What made you get into bodybuilding?
Great question. So I've been playing sports all my life. I played everything. I played baseball at a very high level. I ran track and field in high school at a very high level. Penn relays, football, ICYP, Bayside Raiders. I mean, I've always been a good athlete, always, all my life. But my biggest issue was I was always one of the smaller guys, right? Because I'm 5'5". So I was like, 140, 150, 160, depending on what year you're talking about. But I was always strong. I was always fast. Now, I didn't like to work out. So that kept me smaller than most of the people my age, because once you start playing at a certain level, at a certain age, you start working out. So I got kicked off my indoor track team because in high school I would go to the weight room and fill out my workouts and leave. But the guy had a camera in the damn room, so I got caught. So he found out, and did you work out yesterday? I said, yeah, I worked out. Here's my sheet. He was like, oh, that's cool. Let's look at the camera. And I was like, fuck, man. So I started really training. I started really training around like 15 years old. I was always in shape. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm one of those mesomorph. A little skinnier type of dude, but I always had muscles. Like I was always, I put on muscle fast. So I was always muscular as a kid. Around 16, I started training like real serious. I got the old weeder bench in my house. With the sand plates and shit. One plate would be like 40 pounds. The other would be like 25 pounds.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? I had the weeder posters. with Rich Gaspari, Mike Christensen. Gary Stridham, those guys, Lee Haney, so once I jumped into bodybuilding, but it was more like body / powerlifting. So I competed in powerlifting, ADFPA first. I didn't get along with bodybuilders. I didn't like the attitudes.
I don't blame you.
I didn't like the way they dressed, with the big baggy pants.
Yeah, back then it was the big baggy pants. And the skinny fucking tank top where you could see the nipples and shit. Yeah, I remember that. That was the early 90s.
Early 90s, man. So I didn't get along with them. So I would go to the gym. I'd be like, these fucking bodybuilders, man. These fucking guys, you know. And, you know, my thing was to be strong, and I was really strong. My friend, Juan Carlos Fernandez, he competed first. He competed, we've been buddies since we were like 8 years old. So he competed first in like in 97, 98. And he did well. You know, guy had really good genetics and stuff. And then in 2000, I was backstage at his show. And I was natural. I was natural all the way from 1990 to June of 2000. So I trained natural for 10 and a half years. Yeah, man. So naturally, I was, so put it this way. So in 2000, before I touched anything, I was 197 pounds. And there's some pictures of me online that people are like, oh, you weren't natural. I'm like, well, if you look at that picture in June of 2000, and you look at a picture in November of 2000, right? Because that's when I won the Eastern USAs. I weighed exactly the same, 198 pounds. But you could tell the anabolic difference in the body.
Yeah.
You know, even though I weighed exactly the same. So, you know, people were like, oh, shit. So I'll tell you the first time people got really fucked up. So I started the next day after Atlantic States 2000. I disappeared for like over a month. So July 4th, 2000, everybody's going to the beach, right, for July 4th weekend. So I went to the beach. I wore my Triple X shirt. You know, I stayed real covered. And then when I got to the sand, I took off my shirt. People were like,
yeah,
what the fuck? I'm like, ask me about what's natural now those years.
Right.
People were like, holy fuck. So, yeah, I mean, once I caught the bodybuilding bug, that was it. After 2000, that was it. I fell in love with the sport.
So in 2000, November 2000, you won the Eastern USAs.
Yeah.
And then where'd you go from there?
So I won the novice Eastern USAs at the Easterns. The Open was won by a guy named Ron Brown, old school bodybuilder.
I know Ron. I knew Ron. Yeah.
You know Ron, right? Ron.
It was what's his name's yeah. He was a cop, right?
He was a cop. Yeah. He might still be
he might be retired by this point. But he was what's his name's cousin? Leon Brown, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he had a few cousins that were bodybuilders too. So Ron finished fourth at nationals, and then fourth at nationals, first at the Easterns, and then some guy from Staten Island finished second. I don't know his name. He was a little shorter than I was, but I heard that he went on to the Universe and he finished like third at the Universe. So me finishing third behind those two guys at the Open was fantastic.
Yeah.
You know?
And the rumor had it that Ron was natural too.
Yeah, I mean, Ron was training for a long time, and yes, Ron was like one of those short dudes, man. Like, I'm 5'5", and I think Ron's like 5'4".
Yeah.
You know, and Ron was just strong and natural, man. And he was a really good body.
Yeah. So you go from there, and then where do you go after the Eastern USAs?
So Eastern USAs was November of 2000. That year they had nationals in New York at which cost way too much money. So they never had NPC nationals again in New York, right? So I went to the nationals. I was fucking sweating profusely. Sweaty. And everybody was coming over to me. And, you know, even some of the pros, because I know the pros for a long time. I was in bodybuilding. I was already in the industry for like 10 years. It's not I was new to the industry. I just didn't compete. Right. That's what it was. Like, I was always around bodybuilders. I've been around bodybuilders since like the mid-'80s with my cousins. Mm-hmm. So guys were coming over to me and be like, oh, yo, you okay? Yeah, you okay? You okay? Yeah. So about 2 weeks later, it was the Monday after Thanksgiving, because Nationals is in November. So it was like about a week and a half later. So the Monday after Thanksgiving, couldn't breathe.
Really?
And I was about to go to bed, and I told my wife, I'm like, listen, call the ambulance. Wow. And she was like, what? Like, you're fucking Superman. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get hit by a fucking truck and you keep walking. You know? And I was like, nah, something's wrong. So we went to the hospital, and by the time I got to the hospital, I took off my shirt and I couldn't breathe. So they ran me to the x-rays. My left lung was full of fluid, 98%.
Holy shit.
And my right lung was full of fluid, 96%.
How did that happen?
So the doctor goes, you see these x-rays? I'm like, yeah, it's clear. He was like, what do you mean it's clear? I was like, this shit's clear. It's all white. He goes, no, bro. Clear means it's nothing out there. You have fucking pneumonia. You're dying. And I'm like, I ain't fucking. I'm not dying. Just put me on some fucking fluids or something. You know, so they were like, we have to endorse you into a coma.
What?
Being a fucking bodybuilder, yeah. So being the bodybuilder who I was like, wait a minute. I mean, if you put me in a coma, How am I supposed to eat every 2 hours?
That's the least of your worries, man.
Like, yeah, and he was like a young Indian guy, so he was like, my man, I ain't fucking around. Like, you're gonna die. Like, you will die in a couple of hours. So they induced me into a coma.
Wow.
And I was in a coma for like 8 days. So
holy
shit. Like, I'm not sure if you're prepped for a show, but when you prep for a show, like you feel like tired
all the time.
You feel like, it's like you feel certain things. So that was my worst prep, just because I had pneumonia the whole entire prep.
Holy shit.
But to me, it was like, all right, I guess this is what a first prep actually feels like. Tired, sluggish.
Right.
That didn't stop me from finishing the prep. That didn't stop me from lifting heavy weights or anything like that at all. And so that's what happened in 2000. 2001, I went to nationals in Atlanta. That's when Johnny Jackson won, Branch Warren won, and I was still sick a year later.
Wow.
Like I was still recovering. And then my second show was 2002 Atlantic States.
Okay. And how did you do in 2002?
So in 2002, let's put it this way. When I woke up the morning of Atlantic States, I went to look in front of the mirror and I told my family, I said, listen, call everybody. And they were like, what? I'm like, just fucking call everybody. It's over. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. It's fucking over. Like, bro, let me tell you, man, like you could literally see my heart. You know what I'm saying? Like my shit was like blue. Like I had no fucking skin at all. I was ridiculously shredded. That's probably the most shredded, unhealthy shredded I ever was. But once I got on stage, it was people like, oh, it was flat, shouldn't I won. I was flat. I was walking around at, when people say 3-4% body fat, like this impossible. I was walking around 3-4% body fat.
Yeah. How old were you at that time? That's 2002. How old were you?
Yeah, so I was born in 1973. So we were talking about I was 27 for my first show. So I was 29 for Atlantic States.
Okay. And what were you doing for a living at that point?
You
don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
My life is very, very well documented, so I have nothing to hide whatsoever. I've never lied about my life. I'm very proud of who I am and what I've become and how I've changed. So my life is documented, man. I mean, I was a street hustler, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, that's what I did growing up all my life, from age 8, when you see your mother crying from hunger and you living in a 1-bedroom apartment with 5 aunts and 2 of them are handicapped, and you have to stand online for hours for your welfare checks, and you have to go to the store with your welfare checks, and there's no way out the hood. That's just the way it is, man.
And you were in Red Hook, right, at that point when you were a kid?
Yeah, so that's where I started hustling in Red Hook, right? So I was 8 years old, and I applied for every newspaper job available. So we had 4 major newspapers at the time, and I got each job. So I was like, so how am I supposed to deliver 4 newspapers? So I hired 4 guys to do the newspaper delivery from and I would take part of the check, but that still wasn't enough, man. Like I couldn't help my family with that, so I became, the older guys use the younger kids as hustlers to move the money around and move everything around, and that's how I started, man. And like I said, man, I've never lied about who I guess there's a line by John Gotti says, I've never lied because I'm not scared of anybody. Mm-hmm. You only lie when you're scared, right? So that's just me, man. But I have a double master's. I graduated from college with 3.7 GPA. I graduated with my master's with 3.7, 3.8 GPA. Mm-hmm. And I've done a lot of stuff. I've run every type of business possible. And like I said, man, I've lived a good life, man. And I've lived a very blessed.
So for people that don't know, in the 80s, when you were growing up and you were in Red Hook, the Red Hook projects, I'm pretty sure had the highest murder rate in any projects in New York City.
Yeah, so Red Hook, for anybody that doesn't know, you can look at a map and see where Red Hook is. So Red Hook is in the southern point of Brooklyn, right? So it's basically cut off from like everything, including like there's one way in and one way out, right? There's a couple of streets, but you're talking about like once you get into Red Hook, and it's Red Hook and it's shitty. Not Red Hook now. It is in a Kia.
Yeah.
Beautiful brownstone houses. It's a little different. So Red Hook is basically cut off from like everything. It's like a part of New York. It's almost like South Jamaica, Queens, going into Far Rockaway, right? Like that area is never going to develop because they have to put people, low class income people, somewhere. So that's where they've thrown all the lower class income people, and Red Hook was the same thing. So Red Hook at that time was a murder capital of New York City, man. Yeah. And the zombies will come out. Zombies will come out at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. And the crackheads, that zombies being the crackheads, that's it. And the good families had their kids inside the house, I lived right on top of Carmelo Anthony's family. So I remember Carmelo Anthony as a kid.
Yeah.
So I remember coming to visit his uncle and everything else like that. So like there's some famous people that lived in Red Hook.
Yeah. Listen,
and it's some of my buildings.
We talked before we went on, and my family, I never lived in Red Hook, but my cousins, my parents, aunts and uncles all lived in Red Hook because my parents bought a house in Bensonhurst, but right across from the highway is Carroll Gardens, but they always called it Red Hook anyway. And that was, at the time, it was the all Italian area.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was anyway. Now it's, like you said, it's all hipsters and yuppies and everything, and $1 million fucking homes and whatnot. Anyway, all right. So you win the Atlantic States. I'm assuming you win the whole thing.
Yeah, I took the whole show.
And that's in 2002. And then where did you go from there?
So 2003, I did nationals, finished fourth, and I finished fourth behind Chris Drim, Rock Shabazz, and Curtis Bryant. 3 guys that turned pro. So all 3 of them were good. But I finished fourth more because I was hanging out the whole time. The week before nationals, I was in Sound Factory.
You cut out on me.
And the judges found out about it too. So like I was so yeah. So so the week before the show was at Sound Factory, and some of the judges found out, right? So you know how like at shows they call top 5, right? They call the top 5 out.
Yeah.
So they only call top 3. So it's Chris Drim, Rock Shabazz, and Curtis Bryant. So I'm standing there. I'm like, all right. So then I got called out in the second call out, first call out. So then after prejudging, I was like, why wasn't I called out in the first call out? They were like, well, how was Sound Factory? And I was
Get
like,
the fuck out of here. But what does that have to do with?
That's good though. That's a good thing. Yeah, but that's a good thing, man. I mean, if you're not serious and your body's not serious because they know you're fucking around, it is what it is, right? I mean, this sport, you're supposed to do the sport because you're supposed to win. It's a sport. They keep score. So if you're not taking it serious, that's I could have finished second. I wasn't gonna be Chris.
Right.
That was Chris's like 12th national show. Chris was a fucking monster. I'm backstage looking at his arms like, what the fuck is that, bro?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I'm like, God damn. Rock was in good shape. Curtis was big, but I could have took him because I was never the biggest guy. I was just always the most conditioned guy. So yeah, I finished fourth at that show.
So again, for the people who don't know, back then when you did the nationals, the only person that turned pro was the one who won that class, right?
Yeah. So the USA's until 2003 was only one winner, right? Just the overall winner.
Right.
The USA's, I think prior to like the early 90s, there was no winner at the USA. So you wouldn't win the USA championships and you wouldn't get a pro card. So at that time, like in the 80s, the Nationals only had one pro card. Wow. Eventually, they made the Nationals. Yeah, it's crazy. So, I mean, bro, if you really put it this way, like you would have probably 4 pros a year. Turn 4 pros.
Yeah.
Because you would just have the overall of the Nationals. You would have some international IFBB shows. You have the Miss Universe. But it wasn't that easy. It wasn't that easy.
It wasn't easy. It was impossible.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Well, put it this way: my first class at the Eastons, in my novice class, there was 47 competitors.
Yeah, well,
in my class.
Another thing that people don't realize is there was only bodybuilding.
Yeah.
There was no classic. There was no men's physique. There was none of that. There was only, even the girls. It was only bodybuilding. I think fitness came in.
Fitness, yeah, you had bodybuilding and fitness at the time.
That was it.
That's why when people talk about men's physique and classical physique, there was always men's physique guys and there was always classical physique guys. there just wasn't a category for them, right? So those were the guys that wanted to look good. Those are the guys that wanted to look good, and didn't want to, and didn't want to take that much stuff and get that big, But so
Well, they
once
just
they
couldn't
started
get
making
that
those
big.
classes, or they just couldn't get that big, But when they started making those classes, you look at those classes, especially men's classical physique, those guys are probably the best genetically gifted guys they are, because those are the guys with the smaller waist, the bigger shoulders, right? Because that's part of the class. So if you add on weight to some of those guys can't get as big. It's just, listen, not everybody can become a bodybuilder.
No, that's the God's honest truth. I mean, people, the young guys all know who Chris Bumstead is, and I was like, listen, if Chris Bumstead was around in 1995, he would be like the best conditioned guy in the gym. He wouldn't have never turned pro,
I mean, look at Reagan Grimes. Reagan Grimes has a great physique, and he's way bigger than Chris Bumstead. He's finishing outside of the top 10 in the Mr. Olympia open class.
Yeah. So when did you finally turn pro?
You have to look at it that way. So I took off 2004, and in 2005, I turned pro at the USA's. I was going to come in as a heavyweight, but we found out that some guy from Colorado, I don't know, some guy named Phil Heath from Colorado. That's if you know who he is.
Yeah.
So when he won junior nationals, he was a heavyweight, and it was just, I mean, listen, I was about 221 a month when he won junior nationals, right? I was 221 pounds, and we kind of made a decision, like it was probably best to come in as a light heavyweight, Was I more advanced than him at the time? Yeah, and I think he's gonna tell you the same thing. Even though, I mean, I know Phil very well. We all got very good friends. We spent a lot of time together.
That's good.
When we both turned pro after USA's, we spent like the whole next 2 weeks together in California, shooting, hanging out, going to his family's house and everything else. But yeah, so I dropped down to light heavyweight, and I got perfect scores. I blew away my class, and it was a tough class.
Yeah,
I think you had six future pros in that class alone. But I won my class, and then Phil beat me. Phil won the overall USA's, and I got the second card. So there was only 2 pro cards of bodybuilders at the 2005 USA's.
Okay, and it was you and Phil Heath.
Me and Phil Heath.
That's pretty good company to be in, dude.
Yeah.
One of the greatest to ever do it. So now, how did your pro career go after that?
So I competed a few months later at the Charlotte, not the Charlotte Pro. Well, yeah, it was. Oh my God, what was the name of that company? It was a big supplement company online. They had a show. I forgot the name of the company, but it was in North Carolina. I did well. Like I finished 8th. The night before the show, the way I pull water is a little different. The way I personally pull water, and I would never put anybody through this. None of my clients have ever pulled, except for one client, has never pulled water like this. And he had to, because he had to make heavyweight. And again, he blew everybody out in the heavyweight nationals and guys pro. I don't want to say what it is. So the way I pulled water is a lot different than most people. I've mentioned this before, and I kind of hate to say it, but just to be open about it, Mohammed Ben Aziza died because of the way he pulled water, right? He would go without water for a certain amount of time, and then he would just suck at apples, just to try to get fluid, and then, with the sugar, push the food in and blah, blah, blah. So that's how I pulled water, and that's why I was always the most shredded person on stage. Whatever show I did, I was always the hardest guy on stage. At the USA, I was the hardest guy on stage. There was nobody even close, So the night before the Charlotte Pro, I forgot what company sponsored it. It was a big online company. They sold it like the next year, maybe that same year. So the night before the Charlotte Pro, it was insane. Like I had a few people out there, and we were just sitting down watching TV, and one guy looks at me and goes, "Bro," I'm like, "Can you just squeeze?" And I was like, "I can't squeeze." He was like, "You're not squeezing right now?" I'm like, "No, this is like normal." It was like it was like stone, right? It was like the hardest. Like I couldn't even. There was no reason to even flex because everything was just fucking stone hard. So we went to sleep that night, and I had a good feeling. We had Branch Warren doing the show. We had George Ferrer doing the show. We had Mustafa Muhammad, who was huge. He was like 280, like 6'4". doing the show. We had some very good. Dennis James did the show too. We finished second. You know, so we had some real good competitors doing the show. But I was confident, man. Like I had just won the USA's. You know, I was confident in my ability. You know, Branch was just starting to take off in his career around 2005. You know, I knew Dennis was already a Hall of Famer, right? But I was confident. I went to sleep confident, and then around like about 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, and like my heart was going boom, boom, boom. So now I'm like skipping a heartbeat, skipping 2 heartbeats. So I'm laying in bed, and I'm like, all right, this is cool. This is not normal. Let me see my heartbeat catches up to me.
Wow.
You know? I turned around, woke up my wife. I said, listen. She was like, what? I'm like, I don't mean to scare you, though, but I think my heart's stopping. Right?
Wow.
She was like, motherfucker, you better get up to eat. You better do this. You better do that. So I spilled over. I'm not going to lie. I got up. I ate. I drank water. I spilled over. And you know, I finished 8th. So I finished 8th. And I knew I finished 8th at prejudging. Went to eat. After prejudging, I ate all this fucking food and I threw everything up.
Wow.
I threw everything up in the middle of the dining room. I just fucking threw fucking thing up. Everything from the night before, everything of the morning, everything I just ate, threw everything fucking up.
Wow.
As soon as I threw up, I saw my body shaking, right? And everybody's like, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah, hold on, give me a second." So I went to the bathroom, I took off my clothes and shit. So I looked in the mirror, I'm like, I fucking peaked. All that shit I put into my body to feel better came out, and I turned around and it was just night and day. The morning show to night show was just night and day. Mm-hmm. So I finished 8th, 2005, and then my last show was 2009, New York Pro, and I finished 6th.
Mm-hmm. So it's safe to say that you've pushed the envelope.
As far as conditioning, yeah, because for me to win shows, you know, I wasn't the biggest guy. Remember back then we didn't have 202. We didn't have 212.
You were going up against the open.
Know? Yeah. So to me, it's like, all right. So as an amateur, as an NPC competitor, I never looked at any national NPC guys. Never did. Never. I never looked at went to a show and be like, oh shit, that guy looks good. That's an NPC guy, an NPC champion, NPC winner. I never looked at these guys.
Yeah.
My thing was to look at Lee Priest. My thing was to look at Sean Ray. My thing was to look at, guys that were my weight, close to my height, Dexter.
Right.
So I knew I had to look a certain way. We talked earlier about Charles's, genetics. I didn't have this type of genetics. So I had to be shredded. But it goes back to Dorian Yates speaking lately about any athlete to be great in any sport, you have to push the envelope. There's no, you cannot be 100% healthy in any fucking sport.
Yeah.
If you're trying to be the best, you just can't.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. But in bodybuilding, there is a danger zone when it comes to the drugs. It gets to a point where it's a danger zone,
And I'll tell you why too, because if and I've said this before, and you probably saw the interview, like if Ronnie Coleman is taking this whole bottle of water and he looks a certain way, that means I got to take 4 of these waters to look like Ronnie, right?
Right.
So if Ronnie's taking if I'm taking 1,000 milligrams of test, that means I got to take 4,000 milligrams of test.
Right.
If I'm taking 1 anadrol 50, that means I got to take 4 anadrol 50s. And that's the mistake a lot of people make. It's like, no, genetically wise, you can't.
You're just never going to look like that. Yeah. You're just never going to look like Ronnie Coleman. Yeah.
Or even in condition, you're not going to be as conditioned as some of the other people.
Yeah, exactly. So when was your last pro show?
So 2009 was my last pro show.
That was the last pro show.
It was near pro, yeah.
Okay. So you have a reputation now of being a great coach, and you brought a lot of people pro. And I think I saw an interview where you brought over 100 pros. Is that accurate?
Right now it's 115, yeah. So I've turned 115 NPC competitors into pros and 25 natural competitors into pros.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is impressive. And I always said, like, if I ever did a show again, I would, I never really had a good coach. I mean, I had like people in the gym help me or whatever. I always said if I was ever going to do it again, I'm picking somebody decent. And you were always like one of the guys who's like, if I'm doing this again, I'm going to spend the money, but I'm never doing it again. So don't worry about it. Forget it. It ain't happening. Nah, forget it. All right. So how is your business now? How many guys in your rotation or girls in rotation do you have as far as training?
So the most I had, so my really big heyday was around like 2000. So I started really prepping people around late 2006, 2007, 2008. So I carried about 200, 250 people on my roster.
Wow.
Year after year after year. Yeah, bro, you're talking about. Yeah.
And that's what
I'm known for not sleeping.
That's what you do for full time for a living, right?
No, so that's
no.
what I was doing. Yeah. No. So that's so in 2005 the feds took all my money, right? So
okay. Listen, you are not the only one, dude. I mean, I've interviewed Jason Owens, I've interviewed Dave Palumbo. They were all went down the same.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at the time, you know, to be fair, if you wanted stuff, that was the only way to go, because there was no internet. There was, and a lot of the stuff there was no underground labs. Everything was pharmaceutical stuff, and you got it from somebody who got it from a guy like you, a guy like Dave Palumbo, a guy like On. You know what I mean?
Well, I never dealt steroids.
Oh,
steroids was my day.
I'm sorry, dude.
No, I told you I couldn't be dealing steroids since I was 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
Steroids was not my thing. We were one of the main. I can say this because I have 7 years of, you know, after I've been investigated. We were one of the main distributors of certain drugs into the East Coast. You know, so we're not talking about steroids. We're talking about tons of other drugs.
Yeah. You know? Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So it's recreational narcotics.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you ever do time for it?
No. So I've been part of 2 investigations. One was a RICO investigation. I never did time. My record is clean. My name is clean. All
right. So I'm not gonna pry then. Let's just skip it. Let's just skip it, because I don't want to get anybody in trouble or anything. Okay, so now you have this tremendous. Yeah, dude, I'm not going to do that. Now you have this tremendous roster, so you're making good money. I mean, anybody who knows a good coach knows they charge a good amount of money, and it's well worth it. It really is. I mean, I was never at your level, not even close, right? But because I've had, you know, guys in the gym that would help me, I found out later that there were little things I could have did to improve or possibly win, or so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, you get what you pay for. So you're making a good living. And are you still married to the same woman?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, great. And how is your health? Because I did see an interview on RX Muscle where you were having, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, you were having some kidney problems.
2000. So in 2000, so I came back from Florida, moved to Florida. I started my supplement company in Florida. And then I moved back to New York in late 2017. The day the Yankees got Giancarlo Stanton, you know, I was like, the phone rang when I found out, right? So I was like screaming and shit. I was happy. So I picked up the phone and my doctor was like, what's wrong? I'm like, the Yankees just got Giancarlo Stanton. He was like, fuck Stanton. He goes, we need to speak. I was like, what do you mean fuck Stanton? He hit 59 home runs this year. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we found out that my kidney, my creatinine was getting high, my bun was getting high. All my health problems had to do with my high blood pressure, right? So I'm 5'5", walking around 280.
Mamma mia.
Around 275. Yeah, I mean, I was, bro. If I was under 250, I would panic. You know, so 250. I put a picture before. There's some pictures of me being 280. And then really, I'm 280 with abs, you know, 275 with abs. So,
wow.
You know, from being,
and this was 2017.
No, I mean, I was the kidney issue started in 2017. Well, when I found out about it, right? But I was 250 to 280 from 2010 all the way to 2017. You know, I walked around 280 for close to a year, 275, 283 around there.
Even the fact that you weren't competing, you said you just still wanted the mass.
Yeah, but you have to remember, like, my strength was like ridiculous. So my benching was like 500 for like 495 for like 14, 15 reps. You know, my squatting, I mean, you know a lot of old school guys, right? Yeah. So if you ask them how strong he was, they're gonna tell you. If you ask them how intense he was when he training, they're gonna tell you.
Yeah.
Right. So I was strong as hell. I mean, I was one of the strongest pound for pound bodybuilders there were, you know, in the whole world. But I just wasn't as big as some of these guys. I guess I was. You know what I'm saying? Like, you start bugging out in your head because you never.
Dude, 5'5", 280 right? Is insane.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, there are guys 5'10", 280 in their pros. You know.
Yeah, I'm 5'5", 220 now, and I haven't touched anything since May 2018.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, so my blood pressure was the reason to contribute to like my kidney issues, and I never, you know, like even though I always worried about everybody, like they would tell me your blood pressure's high, I'm like, your blood pressure's high, your blood pressure's high, you know, I never really thought about it, but if I would have just took that one fucking pill, you know, that one Lodipine, you know, I would have never had any issues, and but it did. So it took me about a year and a half to recover from my health.
Wow, I'm glad. Yeah, you made the right move, man. I'm glad that you're healthy because that is no joke. If you don't mind me asking, what was your creatinine level when your doctor spoke to you?
So it was 4.5. 4.5.
Now,
So
for people your
high creatine normal 1.3.
Is what?
So your high normal for the average person is 1.3.
Yeah. I've gone at as high as 1.4, 1.5. And and at that point, the doctors would be like, let's do the blood work over, drink some water, don't eat anything when you come in, so on and so forth. And it was basically like, okay, you're borderline right now at 1.4, 1.5, and you were at 4.2, you said?
So I was at 2 for a long time. So somebody who has a certain amount of muscle is always going to have a higher creatine. Right.
It's my doctor told me too.
The most important, it's just the way it is. So I was at 2. And I'm not saying this is normal because it's not normal to be at 2. But again, you're at a certain size, you expect your blood work to be a certain way. And no, it's not normal, and you shouldn't accept it. But if you're in a sport, it is what it is, right? So the most important thing is your GFR. That's your filtration. So if your GFR, your creatine to bond to GFR, there's a certain ratio they take. If you're within that ratio with your high weight muscle density, like if you have a good nephrologist, they're gonna do everything, and they're gonna calculate everything. So I was always within the certain ratio of all three, you know. So I was always okay. But then in December 2017 is when I went above.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you one personal question. If you don't want to answer it, no big deal. You don't have to. But when you were competing, when you were at your height, when you were pro, or even when you were turning to pro, what was an average cycle for you to get in shape to pre-contest?
Yeah. No, this is great because again, this is something I'm always open with.
Okay.
And people like to bullshit, right? People like to fucking lie because nobody ever takes a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna give you. Let me just give you 2 examples first before I get into my own example.
Okay.
So I prepped Dennis James and I prepped Tony Freeman. Right. Wow. 2 Hall of Fame bodybuilders. Yeah. Hall of Fame. I mean, like if they were the Hall of Fame of bodybuilding, like a real place, like Cooperstown, like they would be in there, right?
No question. So absolutely.
No question, absolutely. We followed them growing up and everything, So when I first sent them their programs, each one of them, this was a separate time, about a year apart. Each one of them said, "Yo, Fak, call me." I was like, okay. And they were like, what the fuck is this? And why is this so high? So the reason why I'm telling you this is because everybody thinks that pros take more than they do. And that's not the case, right? So And I give this example all the time. So I have over 300 pairs of Jordans. I'm a big time Jordan collector. I have my shit in like storage, coolant. I mean, I take care of my sneakers. I'm about to sell them because I'm about to be 50 years old, and I'm like, I never wear them, so I might as well make, it's already a good investment, right? I'm gonna sell them. So, but I can't dunk, right? So I have 300 and something pairs of Jordan, and I can't dunk. Right? So why do people think that more is gonna get them bigger? Like they have to accept the fact that there is genetics. They have to accept the fact that people are stronger than others because of fast twitch muscles, faster development, fast explosion. Also the fear of lifting heavy weight. Like it's fucking scary. But I mean, bro, you're wrapping up your knees and you're going on the 700 pounds. You know what I'm saying? Like how many people could actually go on the 700 pounds, 600 pounds, 500 pounds? It's not that many people. So I always give that example first. So let's go back to my cycles. So my first cycle for my first show, was November of 2000. Remember, I was natural from 1990 to June 2000. So from June of 2000, I started. I started taking 4 IUs of growth. I took 500 milligrams of tests, 400 milligrams of EQ, 50 milligrams of Anabar, and then about 8 weeks out, I threw in Masterone. I threw in Primo, and then 5 days I threw in Holotestins. Increased my profile. Put in Provivin, and I threw in oral Wistro. So it was a good combination, but not high amounts. So I went from naturally being, let's say, 196 pounds to being 218 like a month and a half before the show. And I had to come back down to 198.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just, even though you're lean at 198 natural, you're still holding a certain amount of body fat and stuff like that. So that was 2000. In 2002 for the Atlantic States, it was pretty much the same thing. Because remember, I got sick in late 2000, recovered 2001. So my body was still fresh, right? And when you start taking stuff, there's no need to take more and more stuff every single show. You have to let your body maximize. That's why these dudes be taking so much fucking stuff. Again, more is better, right? So more is better. If Ronnie Coleman pokes his eye with fucking suspension, that means I have to poke both my eyes with suspension.
Right.
It's fucking stupidity, man.
Yeah.
So I took around the same stuff in 2000, 2002, and 2003. And I know my cycles because I have everything written down. I have 14 years of training written down in black and white notebooks. Like I have a whole entire. Yeah, I mean, I was very, very regimental even with my cycles. In 2003, that's when I bumped my test up to 750. I bumped my EQ up to 600, and everything else stayed the same pretty much going into the nationals, finishing fourth. And 2005 was the same thing, 750 tests, 600 tests, same thing. After 2005 USA's, I had a month and a half for Charlotte. I bumped up my tests to 1,000 per week. Everything else stayed the same. Charlotte, I came in, USA, that was 196. Charlotte, I came in at 217, I think. So that was about, let's say, 18, 19 pounds heavier. And that's been my cycle. Now, have I gone up? Yeah, I've gone up, right? So I got to the point like, all right, I want to break this weight. I want to break that weight. I want to break this weight. So little by little, I started moving up to like 1,250 tests, 1,500 tests, But I found that the more tests I was taking, I wasn't growing at a faster rate, and I definitely wasn't getting stronger because it's a hormone, right? So it's only so much your body can take. Now, people talk about receptors. There is no fucking such thing as a receptor. Okay. Your body does not have receptors. Like, oh shit, here's testosterone. Here's Winstrol. Here's this. I'm gonna grab this. No, your body doesn't have receptors. And I know people like to talk all the scientific shit. And I'm from Brooklyn, so I keep it real simple. But I'm also Rain Man, right?
Yeah.
So if you follow some of my writings and some of the stuff I've written for muscle development, you're gonna be like, oh shit, like this guy really gets into the science of stuff. But my Rain Man comes to me thinking, my Rain Man comes to me writing, but when I talk to people, it's like, why am I going to confuse everybody, right?
Right.
And that's a selling point. That's a great selling point from coaches nowadays. Let me confuse.
It is, and one of my pet peeves is when you're talking to somebody and they're throwing a bunch of big words at you. It's like, dude, I remember the first time I heard the term visceral fat. I went, "What's that?"
Yeah.
And he goes, stomach fat. So I said, "Why don't you just fucking say stomach fat?" Yeah, I was the same way. I fucking hate that shit, man.
You don't have to be that way, man, bro. I've done a lot of shit in my life, man. I keep this shit simple, man.
So now, what I wanted to get to is back then, did you know guys, you don't have to name names, that were doing 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 milligrams of testosterone, 20 units of IUs of growth, crazy stuff, right? Yeah, because there's this false narrative that the guys back then didn't take a lot of stuff, but the guys today take this incredible amount of shit. My God, like what they take today, it's just crazy what we used to do when we was. And I remember like, being around the guys that we talked about. I mean, I was a young kid. I was just basically, working out, being around them. And I remember the numbers that people were throwing out and so on and so forth. And I'm like, I remember people saying 2,000, 3,000 of milligrams of testosterone a week, so on and so forth. And but I do you think that the stuff back then was better quality? Because that's arguable.
So let's talk about the quality, right?
Yeah.
So people talk about shit being underdosed. Ain't nothing underdosed. It's either fucking real or it's not real. That's it.
Okay, got you.
That's just the way it is. And I'll tell you from experience, because I know guys that have huge underground labs, underground labs, right? So they get it. They have to test the powder. They get this, Bro, let me ask you a question real quick. Do you know any drug dealer that ever told you this shit was bad?
Yeah, no, right. You're right. Yeah, no, nobody's
would be like, yo, let me get 4 rocks. Nah, but the guy down the block has better rocks.
Yeah, right.
Let me get an April. No, my thing is cut too much with whatever, baby aspirin. But the guy down the block got 90% pure shit.
Yeah.
So back then we had, and I caught the end of the era. I also had a very good connect. Like I said, I had, I know guys that they've been around forever. I know guys that have been around for like 30 years. And, when people talking about chemists, I'm not talking about like, home chemists that have fucking filtration through their basement windows. I'm talking about like big laboratories.
Yeah.
So my stuff was always good. The quality was better back then, but it's not like, the guys that are good now have the same quality.
Right.
They find it somehow, or the dealers find them.
Good point. Yeah, right.
Take my stuff. That way I can say blah, blah, blah. Maybe they don't tell them that, but they have like a text from somebody that says this. People are, again, bro, we're talking about dealers, bro. We're talking about dealers of any type. You're talking about shitey people for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no question. And what about the difference between generic growth and pharmaceutical? Because that's also a big argument.
Yeah, so now it's easy, right? Because you go to roidtest.com and you order these testing kits. It's simple. So when I started coaching, and I'm going to say this, and whoever disagrees with me, that you guys can come on the show. I'm sure John would love to have a discussion with that.
No question, absolutely.
Yeah, it'll be fucking fantastic, and I love it. I had discussions with a whole bunch of people, and some of them have passed away, and I told them they were going to fucking pass away because they were fucking lying, right? So we would love to have a discussion. Test your stuff, even if it's from God, test it. If God came down and said, "Here's your cycle," test it. So the point of me saying what I said before is, I was one of the first coaches. I was the first coach I know that actually ran blood work, right? So we ran blood work. I ran blood work, back in 2006, 2005. I remember I've been helping people since AOL days. It's not like I was brand new to bodybuilding. Like, I've been helping people for a long time, and you're gonna have a lot of local bodybuilders that are gonna, he was doing that. So I would run blood work to check your health, but I would also run blood work in the middle of your cycle. So if you're taking 700 to 1,000 milligrams of test, your test levels are below 400. That means what?
That's trash. It's
It's
garbage.
trash.
Yeah,
If you're taking even 4 IUs of GH and your GH levels are 10, what does that mean?
It's trash.
Okay, so now you're taking, so now you get your blood work done and your testosterone level is 5,000, right? Which is not a lot, right? So my test levels at 1,000. So my test levels at 1,000 were unreadable on blood work. So that means the chart goes up to 10,000. So when I would take 1,000 milligrams of test per every 7 to 10 days,
Right.
my test levels on my blood work were over 10,000. So they were not readable. Again, it goes back to genetics, right? Some people take in drugs and the body functions better with the amount of drugs they take. So now you're taking testosterone, your test levels are 5,000. You know, you're taking GH, your GH is, you know, I don't know, 450, 500. Like mine was like 500 or something. But now you're taking Arimidex and Femara, and your estrogen comes back at 4,000. What did I tell you about your estrogen blockers?
It's trash.
It's fucking trash.
Yeah,
right. So now you're taking all these drugs and you're taking fake anti-estrogens, and your body can't get harder.
Right. Yeah.
Why isn't your body getting harder? I mean, I'm taking fucking my 5,000 testosterone level and my 450 GH should be overcoming my 4,000 estrogen. No, that means you're built like 10 women, you know?
Yeah.
So you have the estrogen of like 10 fucking women, and that's the reason why you're not getting hard. And lastly, you know, I know I talk a lot.
That's all right.
Lastly,
makes my job easier.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
So lastly, you know, when you buy stuff that's underground, and this is the reason to test everything. When you buy stuff that's underground, a lot of times all that shit is testosterone. So you're buying testosterone, which is testosterone. You're buying DECA, which is testosterone. Yeah. You're buying EQ, which is testosterone, right? And the reason is because powders, steroid powders, are shipped from China, right? So China's probably tested them, and they know what the fuck they're selling, right? Because, you know, we're assholes. You know, we just buy it to sell it, to make it and to sell it and to use it. But the dealers over here, they don't test it, you know. And even if they do, like, again, how many dealers are gonna tell you, yo, my shit is not real?
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of times, you know, you guys are taking testosterone, EQ, masterone, blah, 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 blah. And everything is tests. And that's why your body is not changing. You know, so that's another reason to get blood work done. You know, so there's a secret for you guys, for your coaches to have.
All right. You know, and if you're in the game long enough, it's going to happen. You know, if you're in the game long enough, it's happened to the best of us. It happened to all of us.
Everybody.
Yeah. Everybody. You know, you know, and then what happens is, you know, for the most part, like you said, you have good connections. You kind of just stick with those guys or whatnot. You know, it's quality, and that's it. You know. So now you're on muscular development. What kind of show is it you have now? So
my first contract with muscular development was in 2005 after the USA. Like, I was backstage and Steve Bleckman just ran over to me. he goes, "You're not with MD," and I'm like, "Who are you?" You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He's like, "My name is Steve Bleckman, and I'm an owner of muscular development." And he goes, "Hold on a second." And then Flex Wheeler came right behind him, and, you know, I've known Flex for a while. And Flex was like, "Yeah, it's muscular development. You need to sign with us," and blah blah blah. So it was like a competition between muscular development and Flex magazine back then, who to sign, right? I chose muscular development just because they were home. They were from Long Island, you know. California had most of the weeder athletes, you know, so it was a lot easier for those guys. And they also signed a lot of guys that they knew. So, you know, the pay was the same back then. And then, because remember, back then there was publication deals, you know, so there's no more publication deals. Like, these athletes don't have publication deals. So let's say like a high guy. So guys with Reader magazines were getting paid $90,000, $100,000, $200,000 a year just from the magazine deal. You know, and then you had companies that were paying a shitload of money before then too. It's not like that no more.
No,
that was a lot different. So we had a column called the F word back then, you know, which fits me perfectly, right? Because the way I am, right? I speak the truth, and fucking I curse, and, you know, and just there's no bullshit about me, right? So we went back and forth with them. I had contracts with Weeder too. You know, both of them treated me very well. I loved being with both of them, you know. And then when I came back, So I sold all my businesses over the last year and a half, pretty much. And, I've invested my money well over the last couple of years, and I was pretty much retired. And I'm like, yo, what the fuck am I gonna do? It's like retirement it's fucking boring. It's like nothing to fucking do, especially being in New York. It's like you're in New York to party, you're in New York to do this. You have different things to do. You wake up every day, you have something to do. But I always kept like 15, 20 clients, my very loyal clients. And I said, you know what? I said, bro, I'm married to bodybuilding. This shit, like, I bleed bodybuilding. Like, bro, like, I'm going to go train after we speak. And I trained already this morning. No, I am. I'm going to go train around like 10:30 and probably 10:30, 10:45. I ate right before I spoke to you. Remember I told you?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So this shit's involuntary for me. I'm not going to lie, man. Like, I've done a lot of stuff, like a lot outside of bodybuilding. Most people don't know me for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I've done a lot. And the one thing I've never stopped doing is bodybuilding. So I'm like, man, this is it. Like, what else is there to do, man? This is what I love to do, and I'm good at it, and I love to do it. So I reached out to Ron Harris. I'm like, bro, let's get back together. Let's get something going, man. Let's get some videos for muscle development going. And he was like, I love the idea. Let's do it. So we came up with the idea of the new show called the Fact Attack.
Mm-hmm.
So Ron Harris hosts it, and it's Ron Harris and myself, and that's the name of the show now. So I'm gonna start. I started filming some videos this past week. I have to reach out to some editors to get the videos done. But remember, like, in the trenches with muscle development?
Yeah.
I want to bring that shit back.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Actually, what was funny is that the last show that we did, Dom Trivellini, do you know who he is? He just turned pro this year.
Yeah.
He was actually saying, because I brought him on for the first episode of MD Muscle Talk, which is the show that I have over there. And he was like, oh, I hope they bring back In the Trenches. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I remember that. And, watching the guys train and so on and so forth. So I'll actually tell him that you're trying to bring it back. I'll fucking make him happy. Yeah,
man. So real quick, just on your show, anybody who wants to do an episode, man, just let me know. Reach out to me, DM me. We're getting a camera guy. We got the okay from everybody in muscle development. So it's not just, I need to be your coach, right? Mm-hmm. That's not the whole point. The whole point is to get you guys exposure, and the exposure you guys deserve, right? You guys work really fucking hard, man. So there's not that much exposure nowadays. Even if you talk about social media, the guys that can't grow their accounts really big, you only have a certain amount of people that have really big followings.
Yeah.
But anybody who wants to be on the show, DM me, man. I would love to have you on, man. But make sure you come and work out hard, because we're gonna fucking work out hard.
I see. So the show is gonna be just training in the gym.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, it's not like a talk show or anything.
Well, the Fact Attack is. So the Fact Attack is a talk show between me and Ron Harris.
So, yeah, that's
the video. The videos will be different. We're gonna put them on. We're gonna put them on MD. We're gonna put them on YouTube. But yeah, we're gonna do a training series on the side. Again, you guys have coaches. Bring your coaches along, man. I'd love to interview them. Bring you guys. It's open. It's an open forum.
You know what? That's not a bad idea. What if maybe when I'll bring the guys from mine.
Yeah.
Right. So even if we get only 2 or 3 guys, like, me, Arns, Nate Spear, whoever, I'll be lost in the dust with that crew, but whatever, fuck it. Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea.
I love Jason too, man. Jason's a good guy, man.
Yeah, he's wicked smart too, like crazy smart. Yeah, he knows his shit. So besides muscular development, where can people reach out to you?
So my Instagram is always up. You can find me on Instagram. I put my Facebook back up a couple weeks ago, so that's up. If you want to reach me for coaching, is Coach Fact Prep at gmail.com. So you can reach me there. And again, through Instagram, DM me, and just reach out, man. Even if you have questions and anything, anywhere I can help people, I always help people no matter what. I'm not a dick. You talk about like charging people and how much money people make. I charge $250 a month for coaching.
Really?
I charged $250 a month in 2006. So my prices have not gone up. I don't do this. I still charge because it takes time out of my day, right? So if I'm charging people and I have, I'm having a lot of clients again, that's why I'm charging people. But at that time, I was trying to make a living and build my life back up. And from there, from bodybuilding, we bought a whole bunch of businesses, not just bodybuilding and nutritional businesses, but different businesses that we sold, and we made a lot of money from, and we were blessed enough to do very well. But yeah, I charge the same. I charge $250 a month, and I have Google Chat app, so like my clients could reach me 24/7. So it's not just by email. Like you guys come like, I have a problem to speak. I'm up I'm up most of the day, and most of the night. So that's another thing. And I still charge $250 a month.
Dude, for $250 a month, I might jump on just to get back in shape.
with 115 pro cards,
yeah,
25 IFBB pro wins, and all that shit. $250 a month is a fucking bargain.
Dude,
can I charge 500? Yeah, I can. But
yeah, I did an NPC show. I did the Brooklyn Grand Prix, and I actually won it in 2014. And I was thinking about doing
the overall.
No, the Masters overall.
Okay.
And I was thinking about doing Team Universe. So I went to go see a really good trainer out in Brooklyn, and I don't want to mention any names.
Starts with an O.
Exactly.
I know everybody. I
know. Starts with an O, and he wanted $100 an hour.
Well, that's personal training. So personal training. I haven't personal trained anybody since like the Reebok Club was open in Manhattan in the bar, back in the 90s. And at that time, I was charging $275 an hour personal training.
Yeah.
But I was where Madonna went, Ashton Kutcher went, Derek Jeter went. That's like a whole different world. I don't personal train. I just don't have the time. But I do train with my clients. Like I'll go to Beth France to train with them. They'll come over to New York to train with them. I've always done that. Yeah.
All right, listen, man. Fakhri. Yeah.
That's cheap though, $100 per hour.
Is it really? Oh, I guess maybe.
Yeah, man, $100 is pretty cheap, man.
Oh, okay. Well, I figured if you're gonna train, 4 or 5 days a week with the guy, turns out to be $400 or $500 a week.
Oh, of course, yeah, of course.
But I just want to thank you, man, for coming on, dude. And coming from the New York scene and the bodybuilding New York scene, you were always a big name, and you were always one of the guys I wanted to get on here to interview. And I appreciate you coming on, dude.
Thank you, man.
Much love, much respect.
You,
and once we get rolling with the MD Muscle Talk, we'll definitely put that together. And once you get your back in the trenches on, we'll definitely put that together. I'm sure the guys will be up for it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, whatever. Listen, however we can work each other, help each other out, let's do it, man. We're both from New York, man. So
yeah,
it's fun, bro. I love this shit, man. Let's do it, man.
Definitely. I'm gonna make sure your Instagram, your email, even the link to your new show is in the description area, so everybody can find you.
Thank you.
And everything will be cool. So we're definitely gonna be in touch because we're part of the MD family now.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Again, congratulations on your show.
Thanks a lot, bro. Thank you again, brother. I'll talk to you soon. Later.
Take care. Bye.